What's up? What's up? Hello, we should be live. We should be alive. It's your boy, kicking it with Timmy B. Hope everyone's doing well. We got an interesting live stream here for you. Today is March 18th, 2025. Hope everyone is doing fantastic. Make sure you're drinking water. We got some water right here for you. Ooh, it's going to be a quick little dive into the JFK files. If that interests your or perks your interest, as they say, or piques your interest, please consider hitting the like, share, and the subscribe button. Hit me up on all platforms at Kicking It with Timmy B. Real quick, John F. Kennedy. John F. Kennedy was the 35th president of the United States from 1961 to 1963. He was a charismatic leader. He championed civil rights, space exploration, and Cold War diplomacy, notably during the Cuban Missile Crisis. His presidency was cut short when he was assassinated in Dallas, Texas, on November 22nd, 1963. His legacy endures through his inspiring speeches, progressive policies, and the lasting impact of his administration. Short synopsis on President John F. Kennedy. Okay, let's see. Let's go check out what ABC News has to say about this, and then we'll pull up the files here. Stand by.
People who studied the assassination of John F. Kennedy are eager for today's release of documents from the investigation, but doubts remain over what's included.
The Trump administration is set to release 80,000 pages of unredacted files on the JFK assassination.
We have a tremendous amount of paper. You've got a lot of reading. I don't believe we're going to redact anything. I said, just don't redact. You can't redact.
99% of
there's a lot. We just checked out it was like 8. It showed me like 8 JPEGs or files, and I was like, there's no way this is just it. And then if you go and expand it, you can go to all, or you can go to 100 or 10, 100, 1,000. You can go to all, and it's very interesting.
Of the JFK documents have already been released, but thousands of files remain partially or fully withheld.
That's a lot.
What remains is about 4,400 documents from a variety of federal agencies, primarily the CIA, that still contain some redactions, ranging from a word to a paragraph to a page to the whole document.
The president did not provide specific.
So there's 4,400 pages left. I have like crucial intel on this. Okay. Well, when is that going to be
specifics
released?
On what could be learned, but called the documents very interesting.
They've been waiting for that for
I'm
decades.
saying.
Then I said during the campaign I'd do it, and I'm a man of my word.
Trump made the same promise during his first term, but ultimately withheld some documents citing intelligence concerns. Lee Harvey Oswald was identified as the sole gunman in the assassination, but conspiracy theories persist, with some claiming a government cover-up. Experts don't expect the files to reveal any sort of smoking gun. The New York Post says an initial review by administration officials turned up no new bombshells. Just last month, the Trump administration released highly anticipated documents related to sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, but they revealed little new information. Critics online expect the same outcome today, one person claiming it's all political theater, another saying, sounds like a paperweight giveaway.
Trump has also ordered the release of documents from the
So funny, man. Shout out to ABC News.
killings of Robert Kennedy and Martin Luther King Jr.
Yeah, we're still waiting on that. We're still waiting on those. Still waiting on those. That is so.
Tonight, thousands of pages of documents expected to be released at any moment, including
It's epic.
files from the CIA and FBI's secret investigations into President John F. Kennedy's assassination.
Interesting.
Lawyers at the Justice Department working all night to review the classified files, according to a person familiar with the matter, after President Trump announced their release yesterday.
I don't believe we're going to redact anything. I said,
That's crazy. So we're about to go check this out. So boom. Released on Twitter, now known as X. Shout out to Laura Loomer. Shout out to Disclose.tv. Shout out to Specular Index. And shout out to Charlie Kirk for releasing the archives. Here's the National Archives. So they dropped a link. It's got the National Archives Jfk Assassination records. It's March 18th, 2025. In accordance with President Trump's directive of March 17th, 2025, all records previously withheld for classification that are part of the President John F. Kennedy Assassination Records collection are released. The National Archives has partnered with the agencies across the federal government to comply with the President's directive in support of Executive Order 14176. Okay, as of March 18th, 2025, the records are available to access either online at this page or in person via hard copy or an analog media formats at the National Archives at College Park, Maryland. As the records continue to be digitized, they will be posted to this page. So section 10 and 11. Section 10 of the President John F. Kennedy Assassination Records Collection Act of 1992 addresses information under court seal or for grand jury secrecy. And Section 11 of the Act addresses records with tax return information subject to Section 6103 of the Internal Revenue Code, IRS, are deeded to the government from a private citizen. So as I was speaking before, I thought I saw 1,000, but you can go up to 200. Let's check out 10. That's the first one. We zoom in here. Release under President John F. Kennedy Assassination Records Act of 1992. The routing a record sheet, clipping of article on the Kennedy and the Secret Services of the USA. It's Oswald Lee. From Reachton or whatever that is. See, I totally forgot where he's from. CI staff Birch O'Neill. The attached article, which may be interest to you, appeared in the 7th March issue of the Italian Communist Party Weekly. Renacita, the writer, Gianfranco Corsini, has been on and off U.S. correspondent for the Italian Communist Press. Note that the section penciled in red, rumors are referred, which suggests that it was the agency to organize what? The murder of wow, that's crazy. What's noted in red though? I mean, I can't can't see what is exactly in red. unless I'm just tripping here, but the agency to organize, that's crazy. Secret. Unclassified. Wow. Okay. Let's check the next one. It's a 3-pager, huh? Released under the President Jfk Records Act of 1992. Let's see here. Right. JFK Assassination System Identification Form, Agency Information. Discussion between member SR Division concerning Oswald Stay in Helsinki. Helsinki trip, USSR Consulate. Paper, textual document, secret. Man, this is interesting. Comments. Oswald, 1993. Right. Right. Okay. We have some signatures here. IP, EDI, officer designation, room number, and building. From Sarah IRS, huh? Okay. Routing and record sheet. Right. Here we go. Okay. I was just like, oh, all right. Discussion between member senior division and COS Helsinki concerning timetable of Oswald's stay in Helsinki. So now this is like, why was he there? Now this is some information of like what the investigation was on what they found of his whole connection there, right? Memo for the record at 0900 this morning. I talked with Frank Freeberg, recently returned COS Helsinki rewarn officer. It says rewarn, like, or am I tripping? Inquiry concerning the timetable of Oswald's stay in Finland in October of 1959. Including his contact with the Soviet consulate there. Copy of the commission letter of 25 May 64 and the state cable of 22 May 64 attached. 2. Freiberg gave me the following information. Wow, this is like a script or something now. Like, okay. It takes 25 minutes to drive from the airport to downtown Helsinki. So it's like the timeline here. By taxi, it would take no more than 5 minutes to reach the Soviet consulate. The Soviet consulate probably closed at 1300 hours local on Saturdays in 1959. Wow, they got like the exact time that they closed at this exact date, or exact year, or something like that, or it's like, wow, that's kind of broken down there. Passenger list manifests at the U.S. consulate in Helsinki are retained for 6 months only and then are destroyed. For Mr. Robert Fulton, CIA has U.S. consular official there at the time. A copy of state's cable inquiry would go to the Helsinki station and they would assist in preparation of a reply. Wait, what? Wow. Wait. Mr. Freiberg agreed that it would be worthwhile to cable the station concerning points not covered by state in the inquiry. He suggested changes incorporated into the cable sent to Helsinki. I would assume a lot of this is probably going to go way over my head. This is just way, this is way out there. But passenger lists manifest at the U.S. consulate Helsinki are retained for 6 months only and then are destroyed. Was U.S. consular official there at the time. So this guy could have destroyed the manifest of who was going to this Soviet consulate. Man, this is wild. Same as release document 340. Right. What's next? That was just the second page. That was just the second page. What's this? How's that look? Yeah, you should be able to read that, right? Discussion between... Okay, so at 0900 this morning, I talked with Frank Freiberg recently. Oh, we just read this, right? We just read this. They just reprinted this, I guess. To cable the station concerning points not covered by state in their inquiry. Yeah, we just read this, but I don't know why that's is that like a reprint or something like that? Yeah, it's the same thing. He suggested changes in corporate, but this is like a reprint of like this kind of like okay. This is discussion with the Warren. Whoa. Let me check this out. This is discussion of a Warren Commission staff member. Letter from J.L. Rankin, General Counsel of the President's Commission, to Mr. Richard Helms, dated 3 July 1964. Discussion with Slauson, 9th July, on questions of Soviet policy. I don't know what that says. Work and visa procedures with the approval of S/SR or C/SR and the DDP. I met with Mr. W. David Slauson on the staff of the President's Commission on the assassination of President Kennedy at 1400 hours on this date. In Commission's offices at 200 Maryland Avenue. Annie, Washington, D.C. The purpose of this meeting was to discuss apparent inconsistencies in material provided with commission by the CIA and by the Department of State, which were called to our attention in a letter from the General Counsel of the Commission from Mr. Helms, dated 3 July 1964. By way of introduction, Mr. Slauson said that in this portion of the Commission's report that he was writing, he would have to deal with the question of whether or not Oswald's departure from the USSR and circumstances, i.e. timing of that departure, were unusual or suspicious in any way. He expressed his belief that they probably were not, and cited Soviet relaxation in such matters in the post-Stalin era. However, I don't know what that's supposed to mean. And he wanted like relaxation, however, he wanted to be sure in his own mind that our information was not in conflict with that which the commission had received from state since all of that information would remain in the records of the commission. After stating my belief that there was no real disagreement or inconsistencies between the information from CIA and that from state, I expressed the view that the matter resolved itself into 3 questions. Okay. A, do the Soviet authorities normally permit Soviet citizens married to foreign nationals to immigrate from the Soviet Union to the homelands of their spouses? B, do they normally permit such Soviet citizens to accompany, i.e., depart simultaneously with their spouses from the Soviet Union? C, how long does it take such Soviet citizens to get Soviet exit visas for such a purpose? Time lapse from application to granting of visas. Interesting. So are they saying that he left the Soviet Union with a woman? Or, I mean, these are interesting questions here. Okay. 4, concerning the first 2 questions, 3A and B and 3B above, I pointed out that we had addressed ourselves mainly to the question of Soviet citizens being allowed to accompany their spouses abroad, while state dealt only with larger question of Soviets married to foreigners being allowed to immigrate without reference to whether or not they simultaneously with or at another time from their spouses. Mr. Slauson committed that this explanation was most helpful, and he reread that both we and state had said in the light. By way of further explanation, I said that the statements in paragraph 6 of our memorandum of 6 April 1964 concerning Soviets being permitted to accompany their foreign spouses abroad were based on a review of 26 cases, of which 10 involved Americans. In only 4 of the cases did a Soviet wife leave the USSR in the company of her foreign husband. In 14 of the cases, the foreign spouse departed alone. And in the remaining 7 cases, insufficient details are known to permit us to categorize them. Okay. Dude, this is wild, bro. I'm not even gonna lie. They're like, this is some lore. This is some freaking lore right now. What? Into this Mr. Slauson, or just like the lore of like how they were doing things in the Soviet Union at the time as this entity, the way that there's like a mention of agencies and stuff like that. I just, wow, there's some, this is wild. And they're talking about spouses and people marrying foreigners who are working. It's like, whoa. I digress. and in remaining 7 cases, insufficient details are known to permit to us to categorize them. I added that although states' information began by citing the issuance of 724 quota and non-quota immigrant visas by the American Embassy in Moscow during the period FY 1954 or 54 to December 1963. It did not indicate how many of these visas were for Soviet citizens who had married U.S. nationals. So they're saying it did not indicate how many of these visas were Soviet citizens who married. So they don't have an approximate number, okay, of that. Actually, state provided detailed information for only 16 cases and did not indicate in many of these whether or not the Soviet was permitted to accompany the foreign spouse. Dude, I'm just trying to is that like some spy stuff? Like I don't, or is it this is crazy. We'll read like this last page here. In response to a question from Mr. Slauson, I stated that most of the 26 cases upon which we based our statements involved foreign students, exchange teachers, and other relatively transient persons. And while a number of cases have certain points in common, they bear little similarity to the Oswald case in that none involved a defector who married prior to repatriating. I noted that the paragraph 6 of our 6 April 1964 memorandum to the commission had pointed this out. Mr. Slauson indicated that he was now satisfied on this matter. 7. Concerning the length of time taken by Soviet authorities to process exit visas for Soviet citizens married to foreign nationals, question 3C above, I stated that, in my opinion, the information provided by state in the third enclosure to Mr. Meeker's letter substantially corresponded to the views expressed in paragraphs 6 and 7 of our memorandum to the commission dated 6 April 1964. Mr. Slauson asked if it would be possible to elaborate paragraph 7 of our memorandum in 6 April by providing a statistical breakdown of the cases on which our statements were based. I indicated this could be done. So this is 8. At this point, Mr. Slauson stated that as a result of our discussion, he felt that the question of possible inconsistencies had been resolved. However, he asked we send a brief written reply to the commission's letter of 3 July 1964, embodying the substance of what I had said concerning the basis for statements included in our 6 April 1964 memorandum. This could include the gist of the draft reply to the commission, which I showed to C/SR on 8 July, plus an elaboration of our statements concerning Soviet visa applications. I mean, they're doing this investigation on how many American, or how many Soviet women are marrying foreigners abroad? There seems that, man, this is okay. 9. Mr. Slauson indicated that he would be sending parts of his report with the Soviet intelligence services to CIA for checking as to their accuracy. We did not say that this would occur. After concluding this meeting with Mr. Slauson, I read volume 52 of the transcript of testimony before, the commission. This included the re-interview of Marina Oswald. Yeah. Holy. And what is this? This is like all the handwritten notes and stuff like that. Folks, I mean, that was like a tiny little deep dive. I'm just so taken aback just by what I've already read, and we haven't even. I mean, they say the agency right at the very beginning of all of this, an agency had something to do with the assassination on JFK. I mean, it says it right there. But wow. So what is this? These are just. This is the transcript, right? For the Soviet spouse to get visas, 6 months, 9 months, 5 months. Married prior July 1962, applied for Norwegian visas per 7 to go from there to Sweden permanently, supposedly dead. Married 1959 or 60 out of 21, May 1962. That's wow. American teacher, Swedish student, Swedish businessman, Swedish. So it's not even just women. It's just like men and women who are applying for visas to go out of Russia. Wes Sermon, American businessman, Swedish student, Italian communist journalist, American tourist unbalanced. I don't know what that says. Ian born or Russian born. I'm sorry. So I just can't. I can't see. I got bad eyes. Father under FBI survey. Yeah. So that was the thing too. There's some kind of talk about the Soviet intelligence passing off information to the CIA. There was something in that. What is this? In the 3 cases, a lapse of several months been between application and issuance of the Soviet exit was 5 months in one case, 6 in the second, and 1 in the third. In another case, the Western husband was reluctant to leave the USSR without his Soviet wife. That's crazy. He did some 6 months after the wedding. It's just crazy that we're reading this in the JFK file. Like this is, I would not expect this to be in a JFK, at least for me. So that like this has all been very interesting so far for me. Just diving in, literally, I looked at like the first document before starting up this stream and going in with you folks. And this is very interesting. So where were we? The visa was issued. Wait. We're talking about the Soviet wife. He did some 6 months after the wedding only because of the Soviet Authorities told him that her exit application would not be processed until he had left. What? The visa was issued only about 6 weeks after his departure. Out, it may have been applied for when they were married or at any time during the 6 months. I don't understand. That's some weird law or thing that they got going on with married folks over there and transporting or leaving the country as well, applying for visas. That's okay. In 4 other cases, it is possible to infer approximate time limits for the granting of an exit visa. One was granted within 4 to 5 months, the second within 6 to 7 months, the third within 9 months, and the fourth within 11 months. In 3 additional cases, visa issuance took a minimum of 7, 11, and 12 months, respectively. So it would just take like a year, right? I would assume it would be kind of depending on who you are, but I would just kind of assume it's just when you're applying for it, right? Like it's just how that kind of is, right? Somebody let me know about that. So we're getting like a crash course of like Russian Soviet Union era visa, like leaving the country, kind of the whole vibe of that, and like the lifestyle, or kind of like what these people were, I would say lifestyle, because we're reading about it, right? Like that. Not whether they left USR together. See, like you're finding all this stuff out. Greco Pagari, Soviet space accompanied foreigner, because these people are applying for like visas. It's like very, very important that you understand or you get this information, I would assume. But note that he wanted to take her out with him prior to their marriage, since she was still technically married to someone else. Whoa. See, like that's, you're just diving in these people's, and that married thing, man. You're like putting that seal, you're just putting that, stamp on yourself, and that goes with you. Someone else, but Soviets refused exit visa, and he had to return later to marry her and then await granting of exit visa in order to bring her out. Total cases 26. Exit via application immediately. These are all people's names. Alvaro, Lundahl, well, here's I kind of wanted to get some perspective on it from the folks on X. Let's see. So Tulsi Gabbard shared it as well. So let's see. Let's pull up what she said. So Tulsi Gabbard says President Trump is ushering a new era of maximum transparency. I'm like in the way here. Let me get out of the way. Let me get out of the way. Boom. President Trump is ushering in a new era of maximum transparency. Today, per his direction, previously redacted Jfk assassination files are being released to the public with no redactions. Promises made, promises kept. And it's archives.gov/JFK. And the first comment goes to Mr. Pitbull. This was 3 hours ago. It's March 18th, 2025. It goes, the first file I opened was CIA secret document detailing a plan to induce crop failures in Cuba to spark civil unrest. This is literally a blueprint for a color revolution. Why would anyone think they've stopped doing this? That's interesting. So, Office of Director of National Intelligence, it's the DNI. That's where Tulsi Gabbard plays in. Shout out to Tulsi Gabbard. News release for immediate release, ODNI. News release number 0425 on March 18th, 2025. That's today. Previously classified President John F. Kennedy assassination collection records now released. President Trump ushers in a new era of maximum transparency. Washington, D.C. President Donald J. Trump promised maximum transparency and a commitment to rebuild the trust of the American people in the intelligence community. And federal agencies, part of the promise was to fully release previously classified records related to the assassinations of President John F. Kennedy, Senator Robert F. Kennedy, and the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. President Trump's executive order 14176 stated, I quote, the continued redaction and withholding of information from records pertaining to the assassination of JFK is not consistent with the public interest, and the release of these records is long overdue. That's end quote. The president announced that these records should be released without redactions on Tuesday, March 18th, and that's today. We continue. Upon receiving the president's decision, Director of National Intelligence, DNI, Tulsi Gabbard immediately sent out a directive across the IC conveying his directive to provide all unredacted records within the President John F. Kennedy assassination records collection to the National Archives. Wow, so Tulsi Gabbard had a big part in this. It's very interesting. It's like National Archives, let's make this happen. Collection to the National Archives and Records Administration, the NARA, for immediate release. Starting today, the records will be available to access either online at archives.gov/JFK or in person via hard copy or on analog media formats, accessible to the American people at the National Archives at College Park, Maryland. Records that are currently only available for in-person viewing are being digitized and will be uploaded to the archives.gov. Once again, at archives.gov/JFK repository in the coming days. DNI Gabbard will post updates on X, which is what we're looking at right now, at DNI Gabbard, and Truth Social, which we got to pull up on a Truth Social, at DNI Tulsi Gabbard. As the files are released, the files will be available on the White House's website. That's insane. So you can go to whitehouse.gov or whatever it is, and pull up these files straight from the White House website. Love that. Love that. This release consists of approximately 80,000 pages of previously classified records that will be published with no redactions. Additional documents withheld under court seal are for grand jury secrecy, and records subject to Section 6103 of the Internal Revenue Code must be unsealed before release. NARA is working with the Department of Justice to expedite the unsealing of these documents. Grand juries from many years ago have already seen them, so most of this information is already out. But regardless of this information will be immediately released upon the direction of the court. And thank you for your attention to this matter. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that a lot of this has probably been out, but like the people, like the head up people were like tapped in. It's like the everyday people need to be getting this information, in my personal opinion. So that's awesome that we're finally getting it. So we're just gonna go check out the comments here real quick, and then I'm gonna end it. Not too long of a show. Just wanted to get this out there. It's been a minute since we did our news updates. We're going to be getting back to those very soon. At Kicking It with Timmy B on all platforms, and then on X at KIWTB Gaming. So we're just going to go check out the comments real quick, and then we'll end the show. So anyone going to stop any of the harassment and threats from left-wing activists, or that just fine? Or is that just fine with everyone in DC who's supposed to be working for hardworking Americans, and have some kind of picture of Democrat activists create hit lists for Tesla owners, which I did show. I did see this picture earlier. I don't know why people are like doxing folks. That's crazy, right? It's crazy. Let's go back. Kaylee, I see Epstein's file missing in there. I wonder why. Yeah, I wonder why. We shall see. You don't have a clue. All right. Continue. Dr. Gichuho? 1918, 1963, to whom it may concern. Oh, my God. It says, to whom it may concern, never trust a South African car salesperson. And that's John F. Kennedy that said that. Mr. Pitbull goes, quote, the CIA was behind this assassination of JFK, the sitting president of the United States at that point. Man, that's crazy. The day after the assassination, Gary Underhill clique within the CIA was responsible. Less than 6 months later, Underhill was found. Oh my God, it's crazy. From a gunshot wound, officially ruled a suicide. That's crazy. And then he pulls up the memorandum. Rampers John Garrett Underhill Jr., Samuel George Cummings, and Interarmco. Interarmco, yeah, right? Interarmco. Rampers of June 1916, or I cannot read right now. I cannot read tonight. Rampers of June 1967, Volume 5, Number 12, page 28 and 29, or pages, whatever, contains the following passages about subjects. The day after the assassination, Gary Underhill left Washington in a hurry. Later in the evening, he showed up at the home of friends in New Jersey. This dude, he left Washington, D.C. and drove all the way up to New Jersey. I'm sure people are doing that all the time, but like, are you just going to be doing that the day? Oh, man. I can't. You can't even joke about this stuff. It's just wild. He was very agitated. A small clique within the CIA was responsible for the assassination. He confided, and he was afraid for his life, and then probably would have to leave the country. Less than 6 months later, Underhill was found shot to death in his Washington apartment. The coroner ruled it suicide. That's crazy. J. Garrett Underhill had been an intelligence agent during World War II and was a recognized authority of limited warfare and small arms. A researcher and writer on military affairs, he was on a first-name basis with many of the top brass in the Pentagon. He was also on intimate terms with a number of high-ranking CIA officials. He was one of the agency's unpeople who performed special assignments. At one time, he had been a friend of Samuel Cummings of Inter-Armco, the arms broker that numbers among its customers the CIA, and ironically Klein's Sporting Goods of Chicago, from whence whence, it's a W in front of hence, so it's whence. Sick. The mail order Carcano allegedly was purchased by Oswald. What? Dun dun dun. That's crazy. I don't know if that's it, like this must have been a part of. I'm just so like, whoa. This must have been in the files. We'll definitely be coming back and like checking out the files for sure. It's gonna be a great time. It's gonna be a great time. Let's just go over a couple more. Thank you all for being here. It's your boy Kicking It with Timmy B. Once again, we checked out just like a little tiny quick deep dive into the new released JFK files, or it's new to me, but it's released out there today. We're waiting for the RFK files, and we're waiting for the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. files as well. This should make for a good read. Thank you. The powers that kill JFK are still, man, that is wild, man. That is wild. They started it, they'll finish. Redacted files, DOJ review of 500 pages underway. This is garbage. Talk about these adding Pam Bondi to be removed. Well, President Trump thinks that she's doing all right, so I don't know. But it's very interesting how those files came out, and it wasn't really that great of a release. These people are going hard. Yo, the people on freaking, man, they go hard on this site, folks. everybody be atting. Oh man, it's crazy. I'm interested in seeing what else that we get from this though. And then there was a space that we pulled up to. Let's listen a little bit of that, and then we'll bounce out of here. Apparently, Myron Gaines is talking about what's going on as well. Where was that space at? Did I not share that? Maybe I did. I guess I did. Is that on my phone? Let's see. I don't think so. I must have just exited out of it. I forgot. I forgot who was doing it. I'll have to figure it out. Actually, let me see. Yeah, I just jumped right into the space. I forgot who was doing it. I'll figure it out. I guess we'll just tap in with Myron Gaines and see what they have here. See what he has here.
To go over or dispel two of the common reasons were given why LBJ would kill Kennedy, or the military-industrial complex would kill Kennedy so they could continue the war. I've heard you go over it before, but probably good for people to hear.
Good question.
They were ramping up the war. Kennedy spent $6.5 billion on helicopters and airplanes 10 months before the assassination. It's pretty well documented. McNamara, it was the Secretary of Defense. You don't do that unless you're ramping up a war. You're not going to do that and then pull out. The executive order, the memo that was meant to do troop reallocation in South Vietnam was nothing more than to put pressure on DM to go along with the CIA, who wanted to get involved with the war. They didn't want American involvement in the war, so the CIA killed DM, and it pissed Kennedy off. It happened in early November of '63.
Dude, I have to find that space.
The idea he was going to pull out was ridiculous. The memo and all the actions the CIA was taking was meant to get into the war, and DM didn't want them. So, to me, it's just it's superficial bullshit that people kick around. You know, killed by the CIA over Vietnam.
Yeah,
you know, people like Jefferson Morley like to talk about. Ridiculous.
All right. I see Ellis David. Go ahead.
That's what I'm getting from this. That this.
All right, Ellis David, no gun. And Jake the Mullet. Go ahead.
Listen to one more person.
Hey Corey, I was just gonna ask. Can you explain about Harvey?
Just so we can have. I'm on.
Yo, Ellis, you took too long, bro. Go ahead, Jake.
Corey, can you explain about Harvey Lee Oswald compared to Lee Harvey Oswald?
Well, let me go into first I'll talk about that by talking about the documents. And I've got John Armstrong collected well over 50 documents. I have probably more than 50 documents where the Defense Intelligence Agency, the CIA, Office of Naval Intelligence, FBI, Secret Service, all of them in the body of their reports refer to Oswald as Harvey Lee Oswald. These reports stretch into the 1970s. I have one from 73 where they're discussing Harvey Lee Oswald. And Peter Dale Scott did an amazing job when he analyzed these documents. He found that this was intentional obfuscation
to throw off.
It was used as a dual filing system. Now, John Armstrong
took it
a step further.
Like change this guy's name to like throw off people. Come on.
Based on a slew of evidence that the Oswald who we know as Oswald, who was shot by Jack Ruby, is not the man who was born as Lee Harvey Oswald and raised as Lee Harvey Oswald.
That's crazy.
Armstrong's theory was that there was another man involved who went by Harvey. And I started to look into this many years ago, and I kind of put it off for a while. And then when I got into studying Oswald specifically, it inevitably leads to Armstrong's research. And Armstrong's research is by far the best in the world on Kennedy, but he really focuses on Oswald. And the situation with Oswald is that he found in 1953, starting in 53, there were duplicate records in different places of a man named Lee Harvey Oswald. But I found records going back to 45. The first anomaly with Oswald starts in 1945 at the Benbrook Common School where he's in kindergarten. But simultaneously, he's living up in Boston with his mother and a man named Edwin Ekdahl, who was an intelligence contractor for a company called Ebasco, who did work on power plants. And they had a contract with the Soviet Union indicating that they were clearly intelligence connected. But this is the first incident where we have Oswald documented in two different places. And so this is a pattern
That's crazy.
that we will see that stretches all the way until, I don't know what happens in Russia. I haven't gotten to Russia yet, but all the way through the end of his life. Although I can say post 59, all the impersonations of Oswald were Kerry Thornley and William Seymour. That is in my book. I explain it in great detail. The duplicate Oswalds that are reported and are evident based on the evidence.
Wow, there's two Oswalds.
Really goes from 45 to 59, including his time in the Marines. And I'll just give like
it's like, how does this dude become a Marine? And
the schedule that he's said to have been at
goes
known photographic evidence,
to Russia.
Oswald, contradicts what he allegedly did while he was in the Marines, because he was allegedly a radar operator, but that's blatantly false. That guy was, I can't find one person who can put him behind a radar unit, and to go through the radar program took 30 weeks, whereas the radar program he went through only took 6 weeks, and he took it at Biloxi, Mississippi. And he graduated June 18th of 1957.
I don't know, man. They're doing some different things, man.
We have one sergeant named Gajewski who puts him behind a plotting board, which is that clear board with the latitude and longitude on it, but that's the closest he ever got to a radar station. Most witnesses don't put him there either. Most witnesses put him either in the mess hall or in guard duty.
The mess hall or guard duty. That's crazy.
We have a dozen examples, but I'll give one. In November of 1958, Oswald is alleged to have been out on a boat, and where was he? Philippines. He was in Philippines in Corregidor, and he was in Taiwan. Okay, and so he's supposed to be in Taiwan at this time, but that contradicts the known records of Oswald, who was back in Atsugi, Japan, where he was simultaneously being treated for venereal disease. He had gonorrhea and he had anal bleeding. So interesting combination to have, right? But I have all the documents proving that he was in the hospital at Atsugi being treated, where he got a colonoscopy and all this stuff between those dates. But I have other documentation showing that he was on the Marine diaries as having been in Taiwan, and witnesses who put him there. It can't be both. And this is a pattern that you see from Oswald from 1945 onward. The only explanation is that there were two Oswalds. And people think this is crazy, but it's not. It's really not when you think about it. This, to me, appears to be an old Cold War primitive attempt to get a spy into the Soviet Union, which they ultimately did. So when you go back and you study intelligence, they call it identity transfer. It's actually a specific thing they talk about in.
So it fell back on the U.S.
It sounds crazy on
because they turned him
ultimately what they're hiding
against us.
The Oswald family and the Moret family involvement in intelligence. That's what they're hiding more than they're hiding anything connected to the assassination, because that will again lead to other operations and other tradecraft techniques. They will never expose tradecraft ever intentionally. And so that's what I believe Oswald was most of his life. I've studied Oswald to the hilt. Like I've said, I've read every single document on Oswald pre-59, every single interview, every Warren Commission testimony, everything. And nothing else makes sense, especially when you get, I'll give you another statement here. So Oswald's allegedly at the youth house in New York off 12th Street, where he gets in trouble for being a truant, right? And he's talking to a guy named Milton Kurian. And he tells Milton Kurian that he doesn't do well in school because very often his brother goes in his place. Well, he can't be talking about Robert Oswald. Robert Oswald's his next youngest brother, who's 6 years older than him. You're not going to have some, 19-year-old guy show up in a 13-year-old's class. So what brother is he talking about? See, it's little, bits of information like this that are never highlighted, that tell a totally different story, not only of Oswald, but of the assassination itself. And so then my next book is going to be completely on Oswald. I've done a very preliminary cursory investigation into this stuff, and it produced a 5.5-hour video where I explain all my data. The book, when I write it, which will be my next book, I might be working on a book with somebody else in the meantime. We'll see about that very soon. But when I write this book on Oswald, it'll have everything worked out to the finest detail, all written out, because it is mind-blowing what some of the things that happened during Oswald's life, especially when he comes back from New Orleans and he's going to Beauregard Junior High School. It's a wild story. Anybody not familiar with the work of John Armstrong should check out some of this stuff. His conclusions were all wrong, but his data was phenomenal. So,
yo, shout out to Myron Gaines for having whoever that was on speak on that. Yeah, it just seems like the conclusion was that the CIA had something to do with it. Now, CIA is being controlled by somebody, so who instructed the CIA, whoever those parts of the rogue part of the CIA, did all that. You know what I mean? Who sent them? Who sent this man out there to go do that, dog? Like, that's crazy. And then who sent the other guy to go shoot him? Some other guy shot that guy too. So it's like, bruh, and I find it interesting because that guy who was just speaking, he broke it down. Like, he actually gave us a little bit of some gems here. There's like information out there. Like, they really go into like looking at some of these people, like these people's lives. I guess I'm saying, like, my whole thing is I was underestimating the detail that they go into when they go into these investigations, because he brought up that right, not at the ending, but right in the beginning, he was talking about how some of the stuff just didn't line up. Where he was like in the Marines, he's supposed to be doing this radar thing and so on and so forth, and he's supposed to be at this place, but he would have to be here. He'd have to be in multiple places at once. Like, that's super detailed. They were looking into that, so that's just this guy's like story, his lifestyle. That already doesn't add up. I wasn't too aware of that. So that's kind of new intel for me. Now, the ending part, what he was saying is the stuff that he does after that stuff that I just mentioned. I thought that says a lot, because these people are getting detailed in it, and it looks like someone else that was even outside of this. This is just a normal person just looking into the information, and I wouldn't say a normal person. It sounded like somebody that, I don't know, like a writer or something. They wrote a book on this whole thing, on this guy and what his whole. That's insane. Hey, yo, that's insane. That's insane. What's insane about it is this guy had this crazy life. That's the whole point of what I got from that. That guy, spot on, of saying this Lee Harvey Oswald guy had some kind of life. And it's crazy to say that there was somebody else like that's the whole two shooter thing, that he had somebody else. It's crazy to say that there was a guy named Harvey and he's this Lee Oswald. Because we seen it. Oh, so that's what that was. When we looked at one of the beginning documents, it had in writing, it said Oswald Lee. I don't know if it had Harvey right under it. I'd have to go back. Like, you'd have to go back to to double check. But to my understanding, it just had Oswald Lee. And I was like, what is that? It's just because the handwriting, the whole point of this is, if he wasn't, who gave him that name Harvey? Who put the Harvey on that, man? If that's not, I don't want to give this guy's whole theory like a whole thing if it's just some nonsense, but that there's just so much to unpack here. It's just so much to unpack here. I can't believe this. Shout out to everybody for being here. There's just like more and more people keep showing up. I appreciate it. I'm like, I just found out that to be interesting. I wanted to get some verbal, like a verbal, like another side to it, but just verbally. I want to hear this stuff because we've been reading a lot of stuff. I want to hear some verbal stuff and somebody's opinion from it. I don't know who that guy was, but Myron Gaines, he be up in there with some wild folks. So anyway, the guy that I was like, I got freaked out because we clicked on that. We clicked on someone's post and it had this, but it had more of this, and I read that, and I was like, whoa, they shot the guy. Like, and then it. Yo, Tim Pool posted this, man. Tim Pool posted this. Gary Underhill. Who is this guy? We'll look this up real quick. Gary Underhill Jr., also known as Gary Underhill or Garrett Underhill, and Gary Underhill was Captain General Staff G2 in World War II and received the Army Commendation Medal for meritorious service. He was a Harvard graduate, linguist, and self-taught military affairs expert. And that's what they were saying, that this guy, he was like the authority for what again? He was the authority. I can almost remember vividly. They said he's authority of what and what. You put what and what together and just like, whoa. The day after Gary Underhill left Washington in a jury, late in the evening, he showed up at the home of friends in New Jersey. So, like I said, he drove from New Jersey. He drove to New Jersey, but he drove from Washington, D.C. That's so important. I get people do that, but come on. You just don't. We just make trips like that. Like, you would think if the president died and this guy is in some kind of important position, he probably wouldn't be just. He would probably be staying in Washington. You know what I mean? I don't know the whole thing to this, but just reiterating that it's a little weird. But he was very agitated. A small clique within the CIA was responsible for the assassination. He confided, and he was afraid for his life and probably would have to leave the country. He said, leave the country. I just some reason I just read over all of this. Less than 6 months later, Underhill was found shot to death in his apartment, his Washington apartment. The coroner ruled it suicide. Ooh, that's a tough one. That is a tough one. And this is that PDF that we read. And Tim Pool goes, anyone know what this is about? Wow. What a day. What an ending to the day. I had a very interesting day. And then I realized that the JFK files were going to be released. And boy, oh boy, was I not let down. I mean, there's some folks in there to be on like the devil's advocate. I mean, this could be just a bunch of like whatever, just popcorn to just keep feeding to the masses. But this is we've been asking for some information like this, so I think we're finally getting that information. Folks, let me know what you folks think in the comment section below. Excuse me. Make sure you hit the like, share, and the subscribe button. We are back. Just checked out the JFK files. Just a tiny little deep dive. We checked into a few PDFs here. At the beginning, there's thousands or hundreds and hundreds of pages. We're going to be checking out more, but I just wanted to get this out there to you folks. So anyway, thank you for being here. We're streaming live on X at KIWTB Gaming, and we're streaming on Twitch at Kicking It with Timmy B, and this whole live stream is going to be available on YouTube at Kicking It with Timmy B once this is over, so you can watch it in the replay. But shout out to the homie MKJ, the homie MJK, the homie MKJ, and shout out to you great folks for being here. Thank you so much. And yeah, we got more for you. It's March 18th, 2025. Have a blessed morning, afternoon, or evening. See you on the next one. Bye.